Hello and welcome to the Cheltenham Raw. This is the third episode brought to you by oddschecker and PricedUp as we look ahead to this weekend's racing at Leopardstown for the DRF. I'm your host, George Elek. I'm delighted to be joined, as ever, by oddschecker's very own horse racing tipster, Andy Holding. And for the first time on the Cheltenham Raw, but a veteran of the oddschecker betting show, it is Johnny Ward. Johnny, how are you doing?
I'm very well, George. Nice to be called a veteran at the start of the show. There we go.
Normally you'd be our man on the ground for the racing over the Irish Sea, but this time around you're going to be nowhere near it.
No, I'm going to Cairo. Yeah, my missus, she had a baby there 7 months ago. She's come back to work on Monday week, so she was adamant that we got away, and I have a lot of kind of climate change, worries in life, and here I am going off to Cairo during the Dublin Racing Festival, and my son will be on a plane for the first time. Cairo's a bit weird with the internet. Apparently, it's going to be hard enough, but I'm going to be watching the racing as best I can. Apparently, a lot of websites are a little bit prescribed over there, but I'm sure I'll find it. And so where there's a will, there's a way in these things. I think it's going to be a cracking Dublin Race Festival, actually, George, as well. Like Andy will probably be talking about the Willie Mullins dominance that we envisage. And I spoke to Willie at his launch for the Dublin Race Festival at the Yard last week, and he was kind of saying, like, this will never happen again, him winning the 8 Grade 1s when you wouldn't actually be getting that fancy pricing happening this time. And he has, like, favourite and second favourite. He's favourite nearly all of them, bar maybe the Juvenile Hurdle, and second favourite a lot. But notwithstanding that, Gordon Elliott is sidestepping it with 2 of his big horses, I still think it's actually shaping up really well from our first declaration.
Yeah, indeed. Are you the kind of person, if you're walking around, say walk around the pyramids at 3:30 Irish time on Saturday, and the Irish Gold Cup's about to kick, are you getting your phone out? Are you pulling it out to watch it, or are you going to not find out the result and watch it later? What's the plan?
I've watched racing in so many places, so many weird places where, I remember
excusing yourself to go to the gents every half an hour.
Yeah. So, like, people think I'm some sort of an addict in terms of racing or something. When you're off, like, I've gotten into trouble with aforementioned partner about this, where I've been at weddings and just had the phone on for racing, and like I've been at weddings where it's kind of an accepted part of it, where like the groom is big into racing and half of the wedding parties just abandons the room like for a big race and stuff like that. But it is weird, like, when you think, like, you can now on a smartphone, like, you can basically watch a race in the bottom corner of the screen while doing other things on your phone, and you can do this in somewhere like Cairo or whatever, where the concept of even watching a race in your phone not that long ago would have been completely crazy. Now you can watch it on a little corner of the screen. It's minimized, and you can do all these other things as well. And with 4G and 5G and Wi-Fi now, it's incredible. But smartphones have just changed everything. But I've watched, I don't know about Andy, I've watched races in fairly bizarre places at times, including in mad places. Yeah.
Andy, are you switching off, or are you getting the phone out and watching it wherever you are?
Yeah, it depends on the magnitude of the race, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I sometimes like to try and avoid results in a day's racing. If I'm out and about, let's say, me and the family go to the beach one afternoon, I just think, well, if I can just turn my phone off or leave my phone in the room and then go back and watch it all on the computer, I'm watching it live, so I don't get any distractions. I also find it doesn't spoil my afternoon either. If you're out with a lad and the wife, and you get a bill for 150 quid or something like that from a restaurant, you've already done 500 quid in the afternoon in cold blood. It makes your meal taste a little bit worse. So to sort of use the psychology of thinking, well, I'll find out at the end of the day, and then at least my afternoon isn't ruined.
You say that as well, Andy. The one race that comes to mind is it was the Arc in 2008. Now, I can't remember who won the Arc that day. It might have been Zarkava, might have been See the Stars, but we had a posse in Longchamp that day, and I literally couldn't buy a winner. And we met this guy who I'm still in contact with, Ray. He's a great character, and he was involved in a horse with Tony Martin called Tiazi, and he was running in Dundalk in the 5:15, which was probably the last race in Dundalk, give or take, on the Sunday. And we were all back to pretty much like to get out for the probably, and getting out at an ARC weekend is like paying for those meals you were talking about in Paris, which is like extortion at the time. And I hadn't had a winner, I'd say, all weekend, and we were watching it on our phones. We'd all back to Yazzie, and the phone, so he's coming into the straight, completely freezes, right? And then we're looking at the end run, and he goes out to 25s, right? And the next thing he goes 101, and the screen returns, and he's just got up to win by length on the line. And we're watching it there in some bar in Longchamp. And like, this is just the best thing ever. Something like not. He was running. It was a 0 to 60 at Dundalk on an ARC weekend. We're all looking at the phones on the 4G, and Tiazi gets up and saves the ARC weekend. And they're the stories. That's what I often say about having pints and betting. Like, you know, you have a lot of regrets about the loss and all that. I still remember that story and the buzz we had that weekend, and an ARC weekend in 0 to 60 changes at Dundalk, and we watched it on our phones, and we couldn't really watch it because it just went blank for half the race.
I absolutely love it. So good. Getting out of ARC weekend at Dundalk, what it's all about. Before we get into the racing, we're going to go through Saturday and Sunday's cards. We're going to pick out kind of a couple of races. We don't have time to go through them all, but I will be asking Johnny and Andy to flag anything else. And also at Sandown as well, where of course we've got a cracking card on Saturday too, but there just isn't the time to do all of it. And this is the Cheltenham Raw. So this is with a lens to the Cheltenham Festival in March. So we will be talking about the races on this weekend, but also the impact that they might have on some of the races coming up at Cheltenham in March too. Make sure you check out PricedUp. They are sponsoring this show. They are providing boosts and offers. Not only, I mean, they'll be doing a couple specific for you guys watching this at home, but also every day up on PricedUp. You've got great boosts across sports there too. Make sure you sign up for a PricedUp account and enjoy their offering. As Blogger said this time last week, they are going to be changing things around in the industry and all for the better too. So check out PricedUp. We'll kick off this show. We'll be going kind of chronologically to an extent, and that means we're going to be starting with the Solicitors Novice Hurdle, where we're recording this just after 12 o'clock on Thursday, so final decks are through, markets are kind of reforming, but Final Demand is the 7-4 favourite ahead of Super Sunday at 9-2. Sounds Victorious 5-1, Jasmine DeVoe 15-2, Mozzie Star 12-1, Summer Sky, World of Fortunes both 16-1, 20-1. Bar those. Andy, Novice Hurdles, your bag. How do these stack up?
Yeah, nothing's done what you would call a sort of championship time yet. They've all done times just slightly below that, like Final Demand. We've got him running to a reasonably good number at Limerick. The form of that race has worked out well. I think the second and third have both won subsequently. One at Ayr, and I think Gavin Cromwell's won at Ponchestan the other day. The horse finished third. He just looks a really nice horse, and I like the way he got to the line. He powered clear that day. He looks as though he's going to really appreciate the demands that this race will provide him. Willie's got a very strong handy. I think he just basically does what he does every year and just throw 4 or 5 in it and just chuck the balls up in the air and see which one comes down. I think Dancing City went in this race almost the outside of 3 or 4 last year, and he ended up winning. So you've certainly got to bear that in mind. I think the one with the best form coming into the race, aside from Final Demand, is Super Sunday, who was second in a Grade 1 last time out. Of course, that was the Lawlers of Naas. I'm rather hoping that he runs well, because I've backed the Yellow Clay for Cheltenham Glory, and he chased him home that day, 8 lengths second. The rest of them were really strung out that day. It was a real brutal test in the conditions. It got progressively worse through the afternoon, as we know. He could have done with being a little bit more amenable to restraint, let's say, that day. He was very keen. He wasn't like massively keen, but he was just doing enough to kind of wear his petrol gauge down in the latter stages. I thought, therefore, he did really well to finish second. He had every right to sort of back out of it, given he pulled so hard. So the ability is there, and if he settles better today in the first time hood, I've noticed they've gone for that pacifier to kind of perhaps get him to drop his head. I think Patrick Mullins can get a good spin out of Super Sunday. And at the prices I'm looking at here, did I hear you say around about 5-1?
9-2.
9-2. You know exactly where I'm coming from here, Danny. I'm thinking that could be a really good each way bet against the favourite. 1 or 2 others, obviously, are with interest. Sounds Victorious, Mozzie's Sister, and Jasmine DeVoe with the first time pieces on. See how that sparks him up. But yeah, if you didn't want to take a short price about Final Demand, I think Super Sunday is there for the sort of each way thievery following that good run in the Lawlers.
And any appeal about the 20-1 for the Albert Bartlett? I guess Super Sunday fitting that brief of having quite a lot of miles under the bonnet, unlike a Final Demand who's coming into this one fresh off that win. not long ago in December, back in December at Limerick.
Yeah, it's a funny race this, because they've got the 2 mile and the 2 mile 6. It provides information for the trainers that run horses in this race, whether they go back in trip or they go up in trip. Dancing City, of course, who won it last year, went on to run a commendable race in the Albert Bartlett. But then Galliard de Mesnil, who won it a few years back, he ended up finishing an honourable second in the what's now called the Turners. So it is difficult to know until they've run which way direction they're going to go in. I mean, he could easily drop back in trip with Super Sunday because we know he handles 2.5 based on the Lawlers. But if he really hits the line hard, then maybe they'll step him up. But yeah, I think there's lots of decisions to be terminated one way or the other after this weekend, and this is a good start for where Willie stands with a few of his sort of floaters for both those two races you just mentioned.
Johnny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Andy hits the nail on the head there with regard to Willie sort of throwing the balls up in the air, because I feel, he there probably is an element of doubt about which of these is the best, and you couldn't say with any sort of clarity that, I mean, the market's been very, very strong in final demand anti-post. No surprise to Paul Town in Stryden, but very, very early days with him to be suggesting that he's like, he did win easily at Limerick, but like, say he beat Timmy Tuesday, who won subsequently, as Andy said, at Ayr. I think Cornelli did a double that day, and Will the Wise won subsequently, and they were well clear, to be fair, of third. But like Timmy Tuesday, who was second that day, he was 40-1 behind Jasmine DeVoe the previous day at Navan. And finally the man kind of made the run in that day. He had his own pace. He's by Walk in the Park out of Zuska, so he's a really good pedigree. But with Walk in the Parks, I do like to see them in a battle. A lot of them are quite quirky, and he just hasn't had one yet. He won his point to point by 6 lengths. This is a completely different test for him, and I love the fact that you've so many. This is the thing I love with the Dublin Racing Festival. Like, Willie Mullins just runs his horses against each other. He really is inclined to run them against each other. And then you've other candidates like I Am Lorenzo running the race as a maiden, and you've other horses who, like Pray Tell for Desmond Keneally. It makes there's a good narrative to the race in terms of plenty of yards represented. Wingmen, obviously, from that race, the Lawlers race that Andy mentioned, I feel he'll be ridden differently this time. I think he was kind of making the running for the Yellow Clay the last day, and I wouldn't rule him out running well, but I'm well keen to take on the favourite at the prices, because I just feel, as much as he did look very good at Limerick, we don't know an awful lot about him, and I doubt he's as far ahead of everything else as implied by the betting. I'm actually going to go with I'm Lorenzo here. He's really interesting by virtue of the fact that he was off for a year. He ran a really nice race behind No Flies on Him. No Flies on Him has been a bit disappointing, but that was I think that was the first race of the Christmas festival 2 Christmases ago. He was 18-1, but he ran very well. He then wasn't seen until he returned at Galway in October. I was there that day, and he was probably a little bit below par, but it wasn't a bad run. He kept on behind Pattern Merchant. But then at Leopardstown the last year, I really liked that run behind the Enabler. The Enabler is a good horse, and he basically was ahead of him just after the line, and considering the progress that he's making, that was a hell of a run. He beat Port Julane, who was a pretty ready winner of a maiden since. Now, I do wonder with Gavin Cromwell on this, is he thinking of a handicap at Cheltenham? I think you have to have 5 runs as a hurdler now in non-handicaps, in non-novice race at Cheltenham. And so maybe he's thinking, he actually might be thinking Cheltenham with a view to run him here, give him more experience, and maybe tackle a handicap. So that's kind of in the back of my mind. But other than that, the fact that he's happy to go here, and he ran so well at Leopardstown the last year over 2-4, suggesting 2-6 is going to be way, way more suitable. He's really strong to finish, put his head down, just battled. And he's around about 16-20-1. I'd be very happy to back him each way. My final comment on final demand is just I can't have him that short based on what he's done. I think he's basically a bit of a hype horse. He was 4-7 the last day. He's by Walk in the Park. He's a great pedigree, but I'd love to see him in a battle because we haven't yet.
Yeah, I'm Lorenzo, 20-1 best price as it stands right now, but that's going to come under pressure, seeing a lot of kind of 14-12-1 elsewhere. So you have to jump on that. Johnny's selection. On to the second race on the card, where we have the juvenile hurdle, where Hello Neighbour is the 9-4 favourite, just ahead of St. Lucie at 5-2. Lady Vega Allen 4-1, 14-1 Sunnyvale, 18-1 Barthos. 8 runners as it stands, Andy, but 3 dominating the market here. Who's run the best time so far of these 3? Has the market got it right?
Yeah, no, not necessarily, no. Well, I think St. Lucie will go off favourite, and she's the one with the smallest or the weakest time figure that we've got. She was quite impressive when she won first time out, admittedly. She beat a horse called Luke's Tipple. I think is it Andrew Slattery or Andrew Canirons maybe might have that horse. I should have done my research. It's one of the Andrews anyway.
It's Andrew Canirons, isn't it? Yeah.
It is Canirons, yeah. And Luke's Tipple subsequently got beat by a horse called Pure Steel from the Ted Wall stable next time out at Cork. And I think Luke's Tipple runs or is due to run at Musselburgh on Trials Day on Saturday.
He's actually, I was told by Jimmy Mangan, actually, who's the trainer of Pure Steel, that
Jimmy Mangan, yeah, not Ted Walsh. Yeah,
no, you're right. Jimmy, but apparently Andrew Canirons reckons Lucas Tipple is a Fred Winter horse, so that's something to bear in mind ahead of Musselburgh as well.
Okay, yeah, that'll be his third run for a mark, won't it? So that's interesting. Yeah, she was really good on the eye, but she passed the eye test, no doubt. But the time was poor, miles off the likes of, we've talked about East India Dock, who sets a huge standard, and Lalumba, and of course Hello Neighbour and Lady Vega Allen, who set the standard on the time figures that we've got over in Ireland. That was a good race over the Christmas period. Hello Neighbour looked as though he was going to win smoothly, turning for home, what we could see of it in the fog. Lady Vega Allen was a good 6 or 7 lengths off the speed down the back, and she made ground into second, jumping the last, and then closing down on the line or coming to the line, she was catching Hello Neighbour hand over fist. To my eye, she was probably the best horse in the race on the day. Now, obviously, Hello Neighbour, that was his first run over hurdles. That was a baptism of fire. So you think, well, you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. But to be fair, Lady Vega Allen was having her first run as well on these shores, and also had a similar break off the track to Hello Neighbour. So they were probably, fitness-wise, probably about the same. So at 4-1, again, another horse I can't really see not being in the frame, given it's already had a spin in a good time figure around Leopardstown, I think, which has got to be an advantage. If they all go, all 8 runners, I'd be getting stuck into her each way. Whether these are good enough to touch the likes of Lalumba and East India Dock in the Triumph, I don't know. They need to do something really good on the numbers to even remotely be considered. This race often throws up the Triumph Hurdle winner, but I'm just getting the feeling that they're going to be miles off it this year, this race.
So just to clarify, no need. I mean, as keen as you are on Lady Vega Allen here as an each way proposition, no need to be rushing to back the 9-1 for the Triumph currently with PricedUp.
No, not unless something does anything spectacular. And there's just no way they're going to run by East India Dock's time. I've already said to you the other day. I mean, we're talking like Connor, Peace and Co, Lossy Mouth, all the high-ranking best juveniles we've ever seen. Defi DeSorn, and they're not. East India Dock's the daddy. He stands out from the crowd, and that's the kind of level we're talking about. So yeah, these have got to do something spectacular to get to that level. But there's always the mares as an option as well for these.
Yeah.
If they didn't want to take on East India Dock and Lalumba, it wouldn't surprise me if Connections, even if the winner or the defeated, then they might just think, well, it's maybe an easier race to run in the mares race.
Johnny?
5 of the last 6 winners: Sir Eric, Calixios, Vauban, Galamarceau, Carghese. So it's obviously our first grade 1 of the season, but it's spectacular. I've had one anti-post bet for Cheltenham, and it's Hello Neighbour in the Triumph, but I am disappointed I didn't back East India Dock after his November win, because obviously with his pedigree, and I was blown away by him that day. I really, even I think he was 7th after the race, and the Triumph looks spectacular this year, really. And as Andy says, I think the confidence in Ireland is kind of gone a bit, because Hello Neighbour, obviously in the last day, that was a grade 2 race, and himself and Lady Vega then finished kind of side by side. So they need to improve. Hello Neighbour for me is fascinating. I followed this horse because I was in Navan the day he won. There was a big gamble on him that day. What struck me after the race was that he's actually a half brother, if I remember rightly, to A Wave of the Sea, who only won this race in 2020. So he's very interesting in terms of his pedigree. But Gavin Cromwell said after that race at Navan, essentially he's not going to be keen again. He just felt it was kind of real inexperience on his first day out. So that's interesting, because he dropped him back to mile and 2 in Roscommon. That's when I was really taken with him with a view to this race, because he dropped back to mile and 2 and he travelled really well. So he has stamina, but he has a bit of a turn of foot. And at Leopardstown then the last day, in fairly brave move to pitch him in straight in. I fancied him on the basis of just kind of knowing the way the trainer thinks to an extent. Like if he's running him in this, he obviously is pretty confident. And he actually did quite a bit wrong, as you would expect. He's, a juvenile going straight into a graded race is unusual, because generally juvenile hurdlers need experience big time. And he only jumped, give him a 6 out of 10, maybe 5 out of 10 for his jumping. And he was quite keen. And Gavin does go for the hood here. So I'm actually going to tip up Hello Neighbor. I completely see where Andy's coming from, and Lady Vega Alen. And it was actually, she was the one that Willie mentioned at the DRF launch last week, more so than Santa Lucy. If I remember, he was really talking about Lady Vega Alen potentially even putting it up to the horses in the Triumph getting weight. That's what I distinctly remember him saying that. So if you look at the race at Leopardstown, and she was pretty much ahead after the line, maybe she will beat Hello Neighbor. I do feel, though, with the lack of experience that he had, she'd actually run in a hurdle race in France. That's a big advantage to her. I felt he did an awful lot wrong in the day. It was a long run in. If you remember, if you were on the horse, Jerry Hannon I think he anticipated the line almost, because it was that mad day with the fog, and he was looking at the camera like everyone else. And Hello Neighbor was really holding out all out at the line, but I'd imagine 37 days on, with the hood on, the experience of that behind him, Keith Donoghue riding in, I do feel he'll be an awful lot sharper here. Having said that, I wouldn't be surprised if he got near 3-1. He drifted a fair bit before the off the last day. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a 3-1. I'd be kind of happy, like Andy, backing each way around about 3-1, 7-2 in this race, because I do feel that form will be very much key to the outcome. I think this is a smashing horse. I'm not sure he's going to be good enough to win the Triumph.
Yeah, 9-4 best price now, but keep an eye on that drift, albeit been back to a couple of places this morning. But keep your eyes on PricedUp to see what price you can get on the day. Maybe not one to back now. We're going to skip past, just for now, the 225. We may come back to it later on. But we're going to move on to the Irish Arkle now, where Madgeborough is the 4-6 favourite ahead of Il Atlantique at 130, 11-1, Touch Me Not, Firefox 12-1, 33-1, Jean Lapin, and Here Comes Georgie, 66-1. Johnny, Madgeborough, all the rage. I should say all the rage, or should say as well that PricedUp are boosting Madgeborough's price for the Arkle out to an industry best 4-1. So best price anywhere. If you fancy Madgeborough ahead of the Irish Arkle, head to PricedUp, look under boosts, and you can find 4-1, which is better than anyone else out there. Does that appeal to you?
Yeah, that's not a bad price. I mean, he may well, and Willie Mullins alluded to this, he may well be taking on a bit of a freak in the Arkle, but 4-1, it's kind of hard enough to see him not being the first 3 anyway. And, he's only just turned 5. He's done very little wrong. He was beaten by Kyrgyzstan at Leopardstown as a youngster last year, but he was like, it's really interesting that he's gone over fences so early in his life, which Willie spoke about being that he was essentially built for that. I suppose at Fairyhouse, he jumped out to his left a bit, which kind of really advertises how good he was. He beat Tully Hill and Adrian Master, who were both turned over since, which is maybe a small concern for me, but I find him very hard to oppose. I can't have Il Atlantique at all on this ground. Like, I'm living in Dublin. They're calling the chase track Ealing. There's a bit of rain coming, but this isn't going to be bad ground at all at Leopardstown come Saturday. I'd imagine it'd be yielding on the chase track, something like that. For me, Il Atlantique, all his forms on bad ground. I fancied Firefox big time at the prices at Naas, but the ground was heavy by the end of the day, and Gordon Elliott said afterwards he'd be far better on better ground. It was officially soft when he ran behind him, and he didn't jump that well at times. Il Atlantique was good, as he's been at Naas before, but for me, I can't have him on yielding ground over 2 miles. I think he's virtually no chance of beating Marlborough. I'm going to put up Firefox in this race just at the prices. I'd nearly actually put him up each way at 12-1 if I think his best price 12-1 this morning. I'd fancy him to reverse the form with Il Atlantique on the ground. He's a bit of an unflashy horse because he does get beaten a lot. Second to Mystical Power, third to Slade Steel, third to Croke Park when he was evens at Fairyhouse, and then a bit of a muddling race. And I was a bit disappointed in him at Naas, but to be fair, I do believe that the better ground, which you'll definitely get here, will bring about improvement. Don't underestimate, he's lots of experience for a novice as well. Coming in here, it's his 4th run. He's a really solid horse. He is a walk in the park who I feel is very genuine. He always kind of gives his running. And at the prices for me, I'll have him because of the better ground. For all that, I would be surprised if he beat Marlborough.
Yeah, 12-1 best price, but about Firefox, Johnny's selection here. Andy, how do you see it?
I think it's going to be interesting and fascinating anyway to see how this race is run more than anything else, because Il Atlantique, as we know, along with Marlborough and particular Touch Me Not, all like to go pretty hard from the gate. So there's going to be a mad rush to the first, and then sort of like the dynamics will develop from the first one going away from the stands down to the bottom of the back straight. So I think the die will be cast in the early stages. Who's got the right to dominate and who's going to be the Pied Piper here. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe Mark Walsh took a little bit of a lead on Marlborough here, because he's not necessarily an absolute out and out front runner as such, even though he made all on his chase debut. And give him a little bit of a lead in behind to see how he jumps in behind. I think if it comes to a foot race from the back of the second last to the line, I think Marlborough will probably do these for foot. So provided he jumps a clear round and he stays in touch up to that point, as we saw when he won at Fairyhouse, he really scampered clear, didn't he? He got his head down and quickened away. Very rarely seeing, novice chasers at the end of a strongly run race, which that was, quicken away from good horses like Tully Hill and Asian Master. They're not absolutely at the top draw. They're probably grade 2 horses over hurdles, but they're useful. And he left them for dead. So you can argue whichever way you like, who's got the strongest form. Little Antique beat, your Firefox of this world, and of course the below par in the pocket at Nace, and Marlborough beat 2 useful horses. They're all kind of like in a similar category, aren't they? Those kind of horses they were beating. But I just get the feeling that Marlborough is their number one. And yeah, I think there'll be a lot of long faces at Close Sutton if he doesn't win on Saturday. Would I back him at 4-6 now? I think Johnny's probably right to look for a little bit of value. But as far as I'm looking at this race, I probably won't have a bet in it, with only one place really up for grabs from an each way perspective.
Andy, this is our first chance on the Cheltenham Roar to talk about the Arkle, the Cheltenham Festival, where Sir Gino is the 8-11 favourite. I'm sure you'll talk plenty more about Sir Gino in the coming weeks and coming episodes. But in terms of how the Irish form stacks up to Sir Gino, who makes more appeal to you, 8-11 about Sir Gino, or the boosted 4-1 about Marlborough?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it's difficult for me to go against the horses who've done ridiculously good times like Sir Gino. Sir Gino's the top of the pile. He did a 77 when he won at Kempton. We've got Elek Antique 73. We've got Marlborough 71. The fly in the ointment is the horse of Harry Fry's, Gidley Park. We got him doing a 76 when he won at Windsor. Shouldn't be underestimated.
25-1.
Yeah, shouldn't be underestimated, that horse. He kicked a good horse into touch that day, Colwell Potter, who, connections were very, very hopeful of making up into an Arkle horse, certainly a festival horse of some description. And there was long distances back to 2 good horses as well. Ben Pauling thinks a lot of personal ambition, and he was tailed off at halfway, as was the mare of Jamie Snowden's. You Wear It Well. So I think that race at Windsor was a pretty hot race. So yeah, I'm prepared to sort of sit it down and just see how the rest of it unfolds between now and the festival. I've got no real inclination of a bet in the Arkle. But if you gave me a free bet at this moment in time and say which horse would you put it on, I'd probably go Gidley Park each way at 25-1. I think he's been slightly underestimated based on our times.
Beating some good horses in the infancy of his career as well. Beat the Jukebox Man on debut. Beat Lucky Place at Cheltenham before the festival last year as well.
Yeah,
so,
he's good horse. Obviously, he was wrong the first day at Kempton, but he was spectacular at Windsor.
Indeed, yes. Gidley Park one to take, add to the Cheltenham notebook, possibly there from Andy. On to the big one on the day, the Irish Gold Cup, where Galopin de Champs is the 4-6 favourite, had a factor file at 7-2. Monty Star 9-1, Embassy Gardens 12-1, 20-1. I know the way you're thinking. Hewick 28-1, 50-1, bar those. Obviously some people are sitting on some nice fancy prices about Galopin de Champs ahead of the festival. Is there any more? Is there any more juice to come? Should Galopin de Champs put in another impressive performance here? Could we see the 4-5 come under any more pressure for March?
Don't really see any reason why he'll get beat here. I'd probably fancy him to win this race more than I would at Cheltenham, and that's not wanting to sort of contradict myself, because I think Leopardstown very much is his patch. I think John would probably agree with that. He's 6 from 6 round Leopardstown over fences. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he should be, to all intents and purposes, 3 for 3 round Cheltenham, but for falling, of course, in the old Turners chase back in the day when he left Bob Bollinger clear. I'm rather looking at this race from a selfish perspective, because I back Factor File and put him up on my column for the Ryanair, and I'm rather hoping that he gets beat again and gets beat to a degree where even JP McManus, you know, the sportsman he is, but he is also a realist and will probably look at this and think, well, can we really beat Galopin Des Champs over the next 2 furlongs around Cheltenham? Whereas the Ryanair looks to be, you know, more his bag. You know, 2.5 miles in the John Durkan. He was good that day. Yes, okay, he won last year's Brown Advisory, but you know, they didn't go overly hard and it was a small field and I don't think he beat a great deal. So that was a bit of a red herring as such with regard to the trip. But against the very, very best, i.e. Galopin Des Champs, you know, he came unstuck last time out, or he came a clear second best. They might try and ride him differently to get a different result, but it's very hard to see. So yeah, it's again another bit of a bet race for me. But I'm hoping that Factor File gets beat and probably then shortens up for the Ryanair off the back of it.
Factor File 2-1 for the Ryanair as it stands now. So it'd be tough to shorten up even more. But I guess if, you know, as you say, if kicked into touch here, maybe it'll make the decision for them in terms of where they go next. No bet race for Andy. Can you find anything for us, Johnny, in this one?
Nah, it's similar enough for me. I could see what Andy's talking about with regards to Fact File. I'm just wondering, like, will JP McManus even have a runner in the Gold Cup the way it's looking? And like at Christmas, he was very, very keen to have a runner in the big one at Leopardstown and in the King George, even though the King George didn't really look ideal for either of his runners going into the race ground wise, but he was very keen to have a runner. Now, Spillane Sauer obviously has gone to, you know, he's out of the Gold Cup. I know the way you're thinking. Who I felt was a lively sort for the Gold Cup in terms of being unexposed and how much of a turn of foot he has for a stayer. He's not running the race either. He's going to have a light campaign. He's an interesting runner. He got to at Punchestown, he was probably about 30 lengths off Galopin Des Champs. He got to within 15.5 of him last day. That wasn't a bad run for a horse who still has his, you know, the odd jump and frailty. If you really push me, I'd probably have a like 50 cent each way, maybe €1 each way. And I know the way you're thinking. It's just hard to see that race. As Andy says, Galopin Des Champs is practically unbeaten on Leopardstown. After the Gold Cup last year, I thought he was vulnerable this year because he's had a lot of hard races at the top level, and I just thought he was vulnerable at Punchestown, and I was kind of keen to take him on a bit this year. But he was amazing at Leopardstown the last day. It's very, very hard to see what Factor File does to reverse the form. I could definitely see what Andy says. I could see him reverting to the Ryanair. But this is a race I'm just going to watch, and you know, I've a theory that horses are a lot more popular if they've catchy names like kind of Brave Inca and Hardy Eustace and horses like that, you know, Dawn Run down the years. I think horses with French names don't really capture our attention as much over here. And it's Galopin Des Champs. It's kind of like, you know, it's not an Irish name, or it's not a place name, or it's not like that. So maybe it's taken a bit longer for him to become an icon in Ireland. But this is the best staying chaser I've ever seen, and Willie just runs him. He runs him in grueling races. And I'm with Andy. I wouldn't be backing him for the Gold Cup, but to be honest, I couldn't lay 4 to 6 here because I really don't see how he's beaten.
Any view on the Gold Cup then? I mean, Galopin Des Champs 4 to 5, Factor File in there at 130 second favourite, and then out to 8 to 1 Banbridge, Jerry Colombe 10 to 1, Monty Star 14 to 1, Corbett's Cross 16 to 1. I mean, you say you wouldn't be backing him for the Cheltenham Gold Cup, but given what we've seen in the past, I mean, who can you make a case for?
Yeah, I guess it's just another hard race, and you know, you're not exactly sure what ground will show up. He did an awfully hard race in it last year. I mean, you're going through the list there. I mean, it's hard to see what beats him. Jerry Colombe, maybe each way he ran well in the race last year, but it's just from this juncture out, we're in late January, maybe something will go wrong. To be honest, it's hard to see what beats him in the Gold Cup as well. It just wouldn't be my bag at the moment.
Understandable. We were going to move on to the bumper, but sadly, with the champion bumper, Calypso Chance entered, but not been declared today. So we can kind of do any other business, I guess. Andy, is there anything that has been declared for the bumper that stands out on your figures?
Yeah, I got told that maybe the Calypso Chance might not run in that final bumper. Unfortunately, I didn't do anything about it from an anti-poster perspective and back anything else. But I'd be mildly keen or mildly interested, let's say. Not one goes far to say keen, because of the form of the yard's a little bit suspect. And that's Cole Cannon, Noel Mead's horse. Interesting they've got the hood on him for the first time. I don't really like hoods first time. I always think that's a sign that they're
something's up.
Yeah, they're just it's trying to get him to settle really, which basically if you keep backing horses that pull too hard in these kind of races, you come unstuck in the long run. But he struck me as a horse that has got a really good turn of foot when he won at Galway. He beat a horse called Heads Up. Now, Heads Up is a decent horse. He won next time out, John McConnell's horse. And, he made Calypso Chance work the other day at Navan to a degree. I quite like that Cold Cannon, but Noel Mead's horse, I can't remember the last time I had Noel Mead had a win over jumps. He's certainly not the force of he was of old. I'd be hopeful that Noel's horses turn a corner at some stage, but that would be enough to perhaps put me off. I have actually had one anti-post bet for Saturday because I put him up on my column last time out, and I was absolutely hopping mad that he didn't win. I was happy I got my money back, but as the race transpired, Midnight It Is, he's running the Dan Moore, was infuriating to say the very least. I come away from that thinking he should have won it. Gavin actually had the first three home, if you remember. The King of PRS won it. I can't remember what was second. Might have been Pat Duro, something like that.
Duro, yeah.
Was it Pos Pat Duro? Midnight is basically lost his race down the back straight. He made one slight mistake, and Sean Flanagan kind of like was a little bit hesitant on him. He just kind of like let the race slip through his fingers, and he almost gave up on the horse. But then he absolutely took off from the back of the third last, and from being sort of like 10th and going nowhere, 15, 20 behind, he absolutely flew home. I thought to myself, oh yeah, that's either a Grand Annual horse or they're like not necessarily lining it up for something else, but they'll have their day somewhere else along the way with him. He was 8-2 on anti-post. What is he now? 9-2. I think he'll go off shorter than that on the day. It's a good race for Gordon for Gavin as well. He won it 2 years ago with Final Orders. Elusive Ivy won it back in the day, and he was a bit unlucky with Path to Row last year. So it's a race that's dear to his heart. He's gone with Cornerstone Walsh again. I don't think there's a better handicapped horse in that race than Midnight It Is. He's a real high cruiser, and hopefully he won't lose his position like he did last time out at Punchestown. So yeah, Midnight It Is, confident choice there.
9-2, Midnight It Is. That is in the 4:05, the Ryanair Handicap Chase. The second, the penultimate race on the card at Leopardstown on Saturday. Johnny, anything for you on Saturday? I know you've got a couple you fancy on Sunday, but anything else you want to flag before we move on to Sunday's racing?
Yeah, a couple of horses. This horse should have been back to anti-post, really. And I mean, I'm looking at the prices coming in now with Meeting of the Waters off 112. Like, he just has to win that race. The handicap hurdle is way too well handicapped. And I'm not mad on horses going back over hurdles from fences. Willie spoke about him at the launch, thinking he likely wouldn't get in. Gavin, he's actually going to be ridden by Rachel Blackmore. Creeps in at the bottom of the weights off 112. He's I don't think he's ever run over hurdles for Willie off the top of my head. Paul Byrne had him. I was at Cork when he landed a gamble. Patrick Mullins had him at that stage. It was a mad gamble that day because it was I think the future Scottish national winner was in the race, Well McDermott, if I remember rightly, and the market was wild that day, and he bolted up and then came here brilliantly placed. So he went from there to win the Paddy Power here off whatever mark that was. He might be small behind the handicap now chasing, but 112, he just wins, surely. I mean, he just has to get around and jump. He didn't run badly the last day. I'm actually going to take on Andy. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going to take on Andy with Facile Mode in that handicap chase. I do feel this horse has so much ability. He beat Touch Me Not. He was obviously going in the big one on the Saturday at Punchestown. That was his chase debut, well back that day. Then he fell behind the same horse at Punchestown, and the last day I put him up at Punchestown, everything was going well for a lot of the race, jumped brilliantly, and then his jumping fell apart. But at 10-1, I'm giving him a chance. I don't think there are many in that race at all well handicapped. He's rated 135. This is the place where his career started off so brightly, even when he was second in his second bumper at Leopardstown, when he was fourth behind A Dream to Share. He was still ran well that day, and he was a big hype horse after he won his bumper here. Never was sold. I don't know why he wasn't sold or whatever, but he stayed in these colours, and if he can get his jumping together, and Danny Mullins will probably ride him probably with kind of a bit of sympathy because he's fallen or made mistakes in his last two runs, but if he puts it together, I'm happy to back him at 10-1. I'd be surprised if there aren't even Andy's horse better handicap than him.
Meeting of the Waters 5-2 currently, the 225 on Leopardstown on Saturday, and Facile Mode 10-1 against Andy's Midnight It Is. These are all prices with PricedUp, but as I say, we are recording this 1:15 on Thursday, so like these are embryonic prices. They will change rapidly over the next hours and days, so apologies if they are a thing of history by the time you get there. On to Sunday's racing. Oh, Johnny, you're about to say something?
No, just all good.
Just grimacing.
a cracking contest. Nice to see. It's cracking card on Sunday. Obviously we don't know the decks, but I'm very much hoping that we get as many sort of 8-runner races or more. I really do feel, George, it's massively beneficial to turn over to interest in the race if you have 3 each way places if you want to take on. And hopefully we have as many of them as possible on Sunday.
Absolutely. We're going to kick off with the novice chase, where Ballyburn is the 4-6 favourite ahead of Imperial Pass at 3-1. Champ Keely 11-2. Better Days Ahead 8-1. Croke Park 16-1. 33-1 bar those. As Johnny says, we are recording this ahead of final decks, so anti-post rules do apply at this current stage. These races are going to cut up. If you bet a horse now and it isn't declared tomorrow, that bet will be settled as a loser. So always remember that when we are previewing these before final decks. But yeah, Ballyburn stepping up and trip a bit, Andy, off the back of the defeat against Sagino last time. 11-4 favourite for the Brown Advisory now. What do you make of the 4-6 here, and what do you make of that looking ahead to March?
Yeah, I think Stephen Blogger, he's in a good position, isn't he? I think he ended up back in Ballyburn, sort of 6-4, 11-8. He obviously got the inside track that he was going to come here, and there's going to be several defectors. In Elek Lontique, of course, will be one. He probably didn't factor in that Impade Pass was going to come here, however, and I think it's really good sportsmanship by Isaac Swain and Anthony Bromley to have a crack here. I thought, going right-handed in the Scilly Isles on decent on softest ground would have been ideal for him. But yeah, they're going to roll the dice, and yeah, it makes up for interesting viewing, doesn't it? I love Ballyburn. I'm still a big believer of him. He got sort of like a bad press after his run at Kempton, and I thought he'd probably win that day, or he had a decent chance of beating Sagino. I didn't have a bet in the race. And in the end, he was a clear second best. But they've learnt plenty from that. They don't want to be running him over 2 miles around a sharp track again. And I think the further he goes, the better he looks, like he was last year when he won the Turners. He's just looks as though 3 miles he's crying out for. I think the Brown Advisory is tailor made for. He's got oodles and oodles of class. He's run a. Don't forget, he run a big tie figure in defeat at Kempton. We've got Sagino way ahead based on the numbers that we've got. So I don't think it was that bad of a run. It was slightly overplayed, with his mistake at the last. That all of a sudden he's a poor jumper, but I thought he jumped okay up to that point. He jumped brilliantly first time out. I've watched that race several times, and he was pinpoint, to be honest, barring the odd one or two. So I really like him. I think he's the second best chaser I've seen so far this season behind Sagino. That's pretty much stating the flaming obvious, because I think that was easily the best race. I think the fact that those two horses were almost 20-25 lengths clear of a very, very good hurdler called Rubo is all you need to know about how good those two were that day at Kempton.
What do you make? Would you be backing the 11-4 for the Brown Advisory now? Ahead of this?
Yeah. I think he'll win this. I think he'll win it easily, and I think you'll be looking at sort of 5-4 after the weekend.
Johnny, do you see it the same way?
Yeah, I found the market at Kempton extraordinary the last year, that you could back him at 7-4. I don't know, was that a negative around him, or the fact that he was just going over the 2 miles, the fact that he was maybe going right-handed as well, or the fact he was taking on Sergino. But like, Ballyburn's been sent off 2-9, 10-11, 1-2, 1-5, 2-11, and that's just slightly in the back of my mind. Why was he so weak the last day at Kempton? Maybe that's just how good Sergino is. And if you look at the race back, Andy was on about his chase debut, and he was absolutely spectacular. He was quite badly out to his left at times. At the first hurdle, he was out to his left, and coming to a left-handed track here, something that Andy mentioned about Imperial Passy, which probably hasn't been said that much. It could be questionable for him coming left-handed here. He's shown a tendency, to me as well, to want to go right-handed. So I'd be surprised if he didn't win. The trip will be right up his street. If you're not keen on backing at 4-6, I was trying to get a bit of word from Noel Moran this morning about better days ahead. Will he go? I imagine he will go. I still feel he's very solid. Like, he smashed Slade Steel at Navan. He was beaten by Croke Park the last day, but it was still a very solid run. He's a horse that'll give you a good run for your money. I feel he'll be in the first 3 anyway, if you can get on sort of each way anti-post, and I'm not sure if you can necessarily, but he should be in the first 3 anyway. But yeah, I can't really see Ballyburn being beat.
Ballyburn, all the selections for the guys here. Fair bit of market movement in the last 24 hours or so in the Tattersalls Island Novice Hurdle, with Kopek de Board now best price 6-4. Kate Dorhey 5-2. There wasn't much separating these two in the market about 24 hours or so ago, maybe suggesting we'll find out who will be the choice of Paul Townend in terms of who he's going to ride here on Saturday. Maybe that's or on Sunday, I should say, the case for the market move. Redemption Day 7-1, Blue Devassi, or even, I guess, in terms of who's the likely runners are. Johnny, how do you match these two very promising novice hurdlers up?
Yeah, this I find this tricky just because you could easily make a case for either, and I suppose starting with Kopek de Boards, it's a good story that the Racing Post covered it. The the story behind the horse in terms of the owners. I think they're in Fermoy in Cork, and it's just giving them Monabeg Investments. It's giving them some crack. I mean, he was 4-6 when he beat Kawabunga, who's a good horse, and just his jumping was so bad at times. Like, it was again one of those races where it was the revolving camera with the fog, but he just looked like, he honestly, like, Willie Mullins I don't think he overly schools his horses. It looked like this fella had never seen a hurdle before at times, so he obviously has a big engine. But I'm still not quite sure if I'd be backing him at 5-4. Kay Doughty, like, his drift was one of these cases where, like, you just couldn't back the horse. He was that weak in the market. Yet in hindsight, it looked an unbelievable price, 7-2. But that was around about the time there was sort of a doubt about the Willie Mullins stable form. But I suppose the problem is he beat Cocktail Diving, Crack and Calix de la Bruyere, and the form just hasn't really worked out. I'd imagine with Cocktail Diving, I'm still not sure about the de Bromhead Yard form. He's beaten 24 links by Kawabunga the last day. That can't be his running. So Crack and Calix de la Barriere, they took each other on as well. And that was a race that Gordon win it with Ballybow. So they were all pretty well beaten subsequently. So the form has been let down by the second, third, and fourth home at Kay Doughty. So that's a bit of a concern for me. And as I say, like, the engine that the favourite has is there, but he surely needs to jump a lot better. Redemption Day, he was sent off evens behind work ahead at Leopardstown, and they were mystified. I think, I know he's a horse that's been he's been many times off the track and so forth, but Willie said his work beforehand was exemplary going into the race, so I wouldn't be ruling him out at all. And to be honest, if I were to have a bet now, I'd nearly even back Winnie Hill. He'd no hurdle experience behind Kopek de Boards the last day. He went off in front, basically made it a bit of a test, probably went a little bit hard in the circumstances, and can now come back, and he'll have that experience behind him and can run better. And if Sam Ewing rides him, he'll know him a bit more as well. He's going to be a massive price. He obviously has reverse form. He was a very good bumper winner. So maybe at sort of 25s, 33s, I'd back him each way. But it's a tricky race this for me. I wouldn't have a strong view on it.
Yeah, Winnie Hill 33-1. And you look at the Supreme market as well, where Kay Doughty is 8-1, whereas Kopek de Board is 12-1. Isn't really reflected in the way the market's moving ahead of this on Sunday. Who do you have ahead in the two of them?
Yeah, I've got just a sneaky suspicion that those at Close Sutton probably think Kopek de Board has got the better credentials, or the better engine of the two. I think Kay Doughty, if he does run here, the drop back in triple will definitely suit him better than asking him to stretch out to 2.5 miles the other day, because he was literally on his hands and knees, wasn't he, on that long running from the last one. They have to take out the last hurdle because of the low sun. The second horse ran okay next time out, but I think he got beat by two good horses in the shape of Kawabunga and William Money, and that sort of ties in with Kopek de Board, doesn't he? He beat Kawabunga in his main hurdle, despite literally, as Johnny said, almost running into every hurdle as if he was blindfolded. I don't think I've seen a horse with such an awkward or strange technique. It was as if he was like jumping out to his left and trying to like hop over them rather than actually hurdle them. I think it must have alarmed even Willie Mullins. But the fact that he got away with it and he still managed to win and beat a good horse suggests he has got an incredible engine. So if he was to be the number one representative, then and like I say, we don't know what's going to run and what isn't, then he might go off odds on here. It's a good record. It's a good race for Willie as well. I think only in the last 10 to 12 years has Willie Mullins not won it. I think Sam Crow was the only sort of party pooper in that period. And most of the horses he wins with tends to either go on to Cheltenham and win, or certainly run well even if they don't win. So yeah, I think that 12-1 for the Supreme could be seriously under pressure. Personally, I'm hoping Blue Devassi runs well, because I backed Romeo Coolio for the Supreme. I thought Tom Segal put him up the other day as well, which gave me a little bit more confidence, perhaps. But I do like Romeo Coolio just because I think he's uncomplicated and he'll run his race at the festival. We don't really know about the likes of Salvatore Mundi and Kopeck de Board yet, but a lot will be revealed and we'll know more after Sunday. He'll certainly want to jump better anyway if he's going to be a Supreme horse.
On then to the Dublin Chase, where Gaelic Warrior is looking to return to the winners' enclosure, having been beaten by Solness last time out here. And this is another priced up boost. They're pushing Gaelic Warrior out for the Queen Mother Champion Chase from 3-1 out to 4-1. So again, top price in the market by miles there for Gaelic Warrior to go back to back in terms of Cheltenham Festival victories. And looking at the market for this one, Gaelic Warrior mightily short of 4-6. To get ahead here. What do you make of that price?
Yeah, I was a bit underwhelmed with him the first day. He was well backed. As far as I could see, he had every chance. I mean, he obviously, he was a bit rusty here, there, and everywhere. Perhaps a little bit more rusty than connections would have hoped. It was unlike him really to be coming up short first time out, because he's got a very good record going fresh. Every single season off a break, he's won first time out. So you couldn't really say that was a negative. I don't know. Of all the 4-6 shots that Willie's got over the weekend, I'd probably be less reluctant to get involved with this one. I'll put it this way: if you gave me 4-6 Gaelic Warrior, 4-6 Galopin de Champs, I'd be Galopin de Champs every day of the week and again on a Sunday. So it's. Look, I think if all of these that we're looking at here go to post and there is over 8 runners, then you want to be looking for something each way. I don't know, maybe Solness again. He got a little bit of a freebie out in the front the other day and perhaps nicked it or fluked it, whatever you want to call it. But who's to say he might not be able to do it again, particularly if he goes right the way around the outside on the hair rail. I mean, that's going to be a tactic I think is going to be played virtually through every race. That outside of the track at Leopardstown, when they go right where the sort of like the running path is around the outside of that road. That's where you need to be. Going around the inside there is no one's business. So tactically a fascinating race, but yeah, again another race. I wouldn't be backing Gaelic Warrior, and there's just no better race for me at the moment.
In Marine Nationale 4-1, El Fabiolo 8-1, Solness 9-1, Quixelos 16-1, 25-1. And I guess the thing is here, Johnny, I mean, this could really cut up in the next 24 hours or so. We don't really know who's an expected runner.
Yeah, it could cut up. I suppose with Gaelic Warrior, like Andy was underwhelmed in the last year. Like, you got to remember with Gaelic Warrior, like his best hurdles form was over 3 miles, and he does still go out to his right jumping, like, and he was a bit like that again the last day at Leopardstown. So I was very, very keen to take him on the last day. I took him on with Marine Nationale, who, fairness, actually ran well. Like, he was only 3 parts of a length behind him at the line. It was good to yielding ground. Any softening of the ground would be a concern for him, but he was quite well back tonight. I thought that was kind of more like it for him, and his jumping was quite good, even though he didn't actually travel that well. Like, he came off the bridle. Once he came off the bridle a long way out, you knew he wasn't going to win, but he sort of battled on reasonably well. The smaller the field, the better for Gaelic Warrior, but like, you got to remember, he absolutely flopped at this festival last year. So he's a horse that I'm a bit wary of. He's been beaten 3 of the last 4 times now at short prices. And I still feel he's definitely better going the other way. So not a race I'll be getting heavily involved in at all. I probably wouldn't have a bet in the Solness. As Andy said, he got a soft one the last day. And Fabiolo, he's obviously the forgotten horse. You're talking about SBs, like, he's been 1-4, 1-5, 4-11, 2-9 when beaten at Cheltenham, 4-6 beaten at Sandown when we last saw him. Didn't get a strong vibe from Willie Mullins about him. Like, he's absolute stonewall bet in the race if he were anywhere near his best at 8-1. But Willie was sort of saying that we'll see how he gets on in the final quarter of the season, that his work just didn't inspire me that he was near his best. So yeah, this is a race I'm really wary of nearly everything in it.
Wary of everything, but if you are a Gaelic Warrior fan, if you do think Gaelic Warrior will justify the 4-6 about him winning the Dublin Chase on Sunday, I should say, then that 4-1 boosted from 3-1. I mean, it really is top price there in the Queen Mother Champion Chase in March with PricedUp. The final race we're going to cover in detail is the Irish Champion Hurdle, where current prices have Lossiemouth 8-13, Stateman 7-4, Winterfolk 16-1, Daddy Longlegs 33-1, and bar those. Proper match at the top here. We've already heard Andy's thoughts on both Lossiemouth and Stateman's previous runs in the last episode. So, Johnny, where do you see these two at this stage?
Yeah, Willie was just saying Lossiemouth had been trained so much to settle she couldn't go the pace of Constitution Hill, and she said she was beaten after the first at Kenton. All in all, she didn't run too badly, to be fair. She was never going to beat him the way the race panned out. A slowly run race when she beat Tiopu at Fairy House previously, I suppose, didn't necessarily prepare her for that sort of test. And obviously Stateman just has to prove what happened the last day was an aberration. Like, he was probably 2 stone off his best, give or take, in a mad race. The Brighter Days Ahead and King of Kingsfield went very hard in. But, he's now been beaten twice on the bounce, and he was destroyed by Constitution Hill the one time he's met him. So I'd be expecting Paul Townend to ride Lossiemouth. I'm not sure I'd back her at 4-7 in what looks a match, because in fairness, Stateman at his best is very good, but I'd expect Lossiemouth to win. She tactically, again, this will be an interesting race with the small field. Potentially Daddy Longlegs might be there to help Stateman, but it's hard to put him up at 7-4, given that they didn't really have any obvious excuse from the last day. It might have been one of these mad races where they went a strong pace and he was out of his comfort zone, but ultimately he couldn't beat Winter Fog. So I'd be expecting Lossiemouth to win. Probably wouldn't back her at 4-7.
And do you reckon Lossiemouth will take on Constitution Hill again in March?
I put up actually Stateman, anti-post champion hurdle. I find it very hard to think Constitution Hill, Stateman, Lossiemouth, and Brighter Days Ahead will all run in the champion hurdle. I was expecting that Gordon Elek would swerve this race with the mare, because she had a really hard race at Leopardstown the last day. It was a proper hard race. She's had 2 hard races now in her first season as a senior hurdler. And I know from speaking to Eddie O'Leary, they do feel distance-wise, maybe going a bit further will help her. So the champion hurdle and Constitution Hill potentially back to his best. I'm honestly not sure she'll run in that. I'd imagine there might be a bit of a disagreement between Gordon Elliott and Eddie O'Leary about that. And if you're a racing fan, forget about the mare's race, just run her in the champion hurdle. But I think that might kind of, what's happening with other horses might tilt it a bit with Lossiemouth. If she absolutely bolts up here, you'd imagine she runs in the champion. But if she's unimpressive, or if she's beaten, you imagine, we'll step her up and trip 2 miles, isn't her trip, and we're going to run Stateman in the champion hurdle one way or the other. So I wouldn't be confident about either mare, to be honest, avoiding the mare's race. And I'm not a fan of mare's races at Cheltenham at all, but I'd be expecting at least one of them to run it. So this will tell us more about Lossiemouth, but for me, I wouldn't be amazed if she was beaten either. And if she's beaten in this, I don't think she'll run the champion hurdle.
5-2 in the mares hurdle with PricedUp at the moment. If you do fancy Lossiemouth to get turned over here, you can back it for the mares now at 5-2, which was shortened markedly if that is the case. Andy, how do you see this match?
I think the thing to mention more than anything else is how this race is going to develop tactically. Unless you're within the inner sanctum of Willie Mullins and you know what's going to happen, it's a very, very difficult race at this moment in time to have a bet in. It wouldn't surprise me, given how sort of lethargic Stateman has been, particularly once he's been getting 10, 15 lengths beyond like he was the last day, if they decided to revert to type and make the running with him. Don't forget when he was really dominant, perhaps 18 months ago when he won this race a couple of years ago, he was making all the running. I think he was quite a happy puppy out in front. Maybe he's just getting a little bit sour, like being that far back. And there was no way I thought at any stage of town and make any effort to make up that ground the other day. I think he realised from a long, long way out he was a busted flush. I think half the time with trainers, you have to sort of decipher codes and read between the lines what they're saying, because they don't really tell you a lot, do they? But my sort of take on the Andersam comments the other day after he won, and he won spectacularly, you're all thinking, strap the race, he'll go to the champion hurdle, and they're still saying that he's not quite ready yet, or we'll probably hold fire with him. That seemed an odd decision, given I think he's the potential spoiler, isn't he? Or the Johnny come lately onto the champion hurdle scene. So I've got a sneaky feeling that I still feel as though Stateman has got plenty more to give. that's like I said, that's just my gut feeling or my vibes I'm getting. So if Stateman were to bounce out in front, then I think we'll see a lot better performance than we have been. Who will ride him and who will ride Lossiemouth, I don't know. I presume, as Johnny said, Townend will ride Lossiemouth, and I don't know who rides Stateman. Maybe Danny Mullins. But yeah, it should be fascinating watch more than anything else. But that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be watching it, not betting in it. That's I wouldn't totally, like I say, I wouldn't be totally giving up on Stateman. The fact that they're not prepared to roll the dice with Andersam just yet in the Champion Hurdle, I find that fascinating.
Johnny, there are a couple of others running on Sunday that you like, starting with This Is the Way in the 1240. Current price, I think, is 14 to 1. 14 to 1 priced up.
Yeah, I saw This Is the Way win at Down Royal last week, was it? And it was kind of funny. I didn't realise that there were entries in for the handicaps at Leopardstown at that stage. That was it was 12 days before the race. So then I assumed, she'd be run under a penalty, but she's actually not. So she was entered in the race, but the weights obviously weren't paid up. So she runs off £9 higher than she had at Down Royal, but that's fine anyway. She absolutely hacked up at Down Royal. Now, it was a way weaker race than this, but she beat Albatala, who had very solid form going into the race. Miss Gitana, who was third, she beat her by further 9 lengths. Just travelled all over them under Keane Quirk. She's trained by Yvonne and Andrew Latta down, I think they're down in Wexford, and she's had very few races this one. She won a bumper over 2.5 miles, and they were kind of happy to forgive her the run at Wexford, but she absolutely bolted up at Down Royal, really hacked up, and she's coming in here £9 higher. The strong pace should be no problem for her. Travels nicely in her races, and I think she's around about 14 to 1. This is one of the biggest anomalies in racing, how bad Willie Mullins' record is in this race. And it was a race that honoured his dad and now honours his mother and father. So obviously it's a race he'd love to win, but he just mustn't have mares that aren't, his mares must be of a quality that they're generally just not well handicapped enough to win this race. It's extraordinary that he doesn't have a good record in it. And how many runners? He's Straight Home entered. Who Straight Home looks like she'll be favourite, and obviously she's going to take a lot of attention. But I was at Tremor when she was beaten at 5-6. She was then beaten by One Night Standard at Listowel. She did win the last year. She'd been very short prices. I think she was with Timothy Townend back in the day, this horse, but I can't make her favourite anywhere near favourite on form. I feel that she's handicapped as to where she is, and Willie might have to wait another year to win this race. But I do like the latter runner. And my other horse in was Sequester. I was actually talking to Paul Gilligan this morning. He was just about to work the horse. Paul was just gotten his electricity back, and we see Paul Nichols, the problem he had with flooding, and that is some of the Irish trainers have had their own issues with the storm and the bad weather of late. But he was saying that Sequestered is a horse who he doesn't need to work that hard. He's quite straightforward, and he kind of saves a bit for his races. But he won a 17-runner handicap at Leopardstown at Christmas by 10 lengths, and he's gotten £12, which could be on the lenient side. He's coming in at the moment at 10 stone 5 in a race in which, if James De Burley is favourite, I put him up in the race last year. I think Andy might have as well. He'd absolutely no excuses. He finished where did he finish? Third. Andy might have put up Hartwood, the winner, and I put up James De Burley, actually, I remember. But James De Burley had no excuses whatsoever in third, and he's actually £3 higher here. So for me, he's well vulnerable, as in these handicap chases in general. Horses have nothing in hand by and large. But Sequestered, he was only straight out of Maiden Company after running behind Croke Park. And he was so strong at the line. He really fresh horse at the line. And Paul was saying that he came in, he wasn't hardly blown at all. I'd be well happy to back him at 8 to 1.
Yeah, 8 to 1 Sequestered there. That's in the 245, isn't it? Yeah, the 245 on Sunday. Andy, anything else for you on the card on Sunday, or albeit at Sandown on Saturday, or elsewhere over the weekend?
Yeah, I quite like the mare of Cole Murphy's in the first race in that Paddy Mullins race that Johnny's mentioning. I know that the Harry Durham camp really like Queen's Gamble, and I can see that. Second in a very good Jerry Field this year. That race has worked out incredibly well. I wouldn't put you off her, but I really like Savanti. She was in the process of running a big race here over the Christmas period where I think it was Big Shoe fell in front of her and she had nowhere to go and she got brought down. But to my eye, she was still full of running and making a nice little sweep move around the inside when disaster struck. They ran her over 2 miles the time before it down raw, but that trip was too short for her. She wants a real proper test, and stepping up to sort of 2 mile 2 here on soft ground, that'll be right up her street. So I think Savanti's quite well handicapped off 119. Looking at the other handicaps again, we're talking about Noel Mead again. I think he's horse in the handicap chase that Johnny Fancy sequestered, Pinkerton, definitely represents the best form line. That was the strongest run handicap chase we've got all season, the Paddy Power chase that Percy Valagalwa won. The race has worked out really well. Nick Rocket has won. He won the Thyestis the other day. Even 3-card Bragg, who finished 7th, he won next time out. It's just really, really strong form. And I thought Pinkerton ran just as well as he did in defeat that day that he did when he won the Galway Plate. He's a talented horse, Pinkerton, and he's around about 8-1. And the only other one I looked at is Emmett Mullins is in the last Churchfield Sunset. Made all the running last time out at Navan, but hit the line really strong, decent figure. I think she's quite a nice horse.
Got to mention as well, I'm sure Andy's been looking at Brave Troop. So Charles Burns and Paul Byrne teaming up is going to be I wouldn't mind being a fly in the wall in terms of any conversations they have. Two fascinating characters.
It definitely runs anyway, Brave Troop. I think. He definitely runs.
He said, he was just talking to him. They're hoping for the ground to be on the nice side. I think it should be okay. Maybe slightly softer on the hurdles track, but just the way that Paul puts so much thought into these horses. To buy a horse has gone so much up in the handicap after winning 2 relative vacant spoon races to what he's probably going to be achieved at is really interesting because he obviously feels from his data that there's more to come, and this is a nice pot for him to be straight into. And all is well with the horse by all accounts, but that's going to be a fascinating market. I mean, one of my great regrets about racing is that I've gotten into it when the betting ring is essentially dead and almost a complete and utter irrelevance taken over by the internet, like so many things. The betting exchanges has ruined the betting ring, but still the on-course market can be interesting in terms of what's actually happening in the prices, wherever the money is coming from. And the interesting one trying to call what price he'll go off after his hike for Navan.
And anything else, guys, before we let it go? Anything else to flag?
Yeah, that's me anyway.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. The word was on the street that Impede Pass might not run at Sandown on Saturday. So that race looks up for grabs now for Django Bay, who toyed with a couple of really good horses at Cheltenham. I don't see him getting beat in the City Isles, unfortunately. The price now is rather gone.
That's a shame. Well, next time tell us beforehand, Andy. That's all right. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much to Andy. Thank you to Johnny for showing their tips, thoughts, and insight. Make sure you sign up for a PricedUp account if you haven't already. They're boosting horses ahead of the Cheltenham Festival every week on this show. They're boosting stuff every day as well across sports. So sign up for an account with them. You won't regret it. We'll be back again next week to review the DRF and all the other racing over the course of the week. So in the meantime, enjoy the racing and please ensure that you're gambling responsibly.